clear from the book that in times past you loved the Tour de France.
Yes.
Are you still in love with it now?
I am, but what happened is it's like I was married to the Tour de France. We were divorced, and now we've got back together. Actually, I did love this year's tour because I had that privilege of travelling inside Team Sky, and I got to know Chris Froome a lot.
Right.
And I've been hammered for this. I believe Froome is clean, especially my own country, because they don't like to think of an English team doing so well. But I believe Froome is clean, and being back on the tour was something I really enjoyed this year. First time I'd been back for 9 years, but it was great, and I did it, and I do love the race, and I want to go back next year and love it even more.
What were your early impressions of Lance Armstrong when meeting him one-on-one?
Well, when I met him first in 1993, I liked him, I have to say. I thought he was 21 years of age at the time, writing his first tour. I was writing a book. Armstrong was going to be the first chapter, and I thought, this kid has got something. But the stuff that I admired in him then were the kind of sociopathic tendencies that would manifest themselves in a much more negative way later on. I mean, when a kid says to you, I had a stepdad, and the day my mum kicked him out, happiest day of my life, I had a party. Well, you're impressed by that. I was, maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was impressed. I thought, that kid knows his own mind. But when you think about it in hindsight, in a more mature reflection, you think, is that really how you'd like your 12-year-old to be? Having a party when stepdad is kicked out? Not really. So, but I did. I mean, the answer to your question is when I interviewed Lance, I spent 3 hours with him. I wrote a piece in the book, it's 6,000 words. It's a glowing tribute to the guy, to a young guy writing his first tour, a guy who had no interest in the history of the tour. I'm here to win. That was his attitude. I'm here to leave a mark. When this race is over, the world are going to know that Lance Armstrong was here.
And in the book, what's striking is that you were suspicious from the first Tour de France win immediately, 1999?
Yes, I was, and not just suspicious, convinced. And the funny thing was, people have often said, well, how could you have been so convinced when everybody else thought this was a great victory? And I thought, well, he tested positive for cortisone, that got covered up. His attitude to the clean cyclists in the race, he was a bully of the guys who were clean. And every answer he gave on doping was unconvincing. And he was so brilliant in the mountains when previously he'd ridden the Tour 4 times and he'd never been competitive in the mountains. And I thought it all added up to, this guy is as dirty as sin. And then people said, I don't know how you were so convinced. Well, when I was writing Seven Deadly Sins, I went back and I read all the stuff that was written in 99, every last line of it. And I thought, how did anybody think this guy was clean? If you were alongside of me and you were seeing all the stuff I saw, you'd be saying, of course, David, it was obvious. And it was obvious.
But there must have been times when you felt like giving up the pursuit?
Honestly, no. I know it might sound, I never did. I was advised to. My great friend Paul Kimmage pulled me aside in 2005 and said, this is actually destroying your life. This is taking over your life. It's hurting your family. Now, my family never said that, to give them credit. And I remember listening to Paul saying, and I saying, yeah, you're right. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, no, you're not, and I'm not listening to you. And all I wanted to do at that time in 2005, I didn't want to cover Armstrong anymore. I'd written LA Confidential with Pierre Ballester in French. I wanted that book out in English, and I dedicated myself to getting it out in English, and I got it published in America in 2007 as From Lance to Landis, the inside story of American doping at the Tour de France, and getting that out was a big deal for me. That was like John Kerry, the Democrat, who's now doing all that great work with the Iranians. He was going to work with Armstrong on different cancer projects. He read From Lance to Landis, and he kind of distanced himself from him. And now that to me was a little victory,
I live in Spain, and the public there, the offences of Armstrong, Contador and such like, they don't seem to treat it anything like as seriously as we have here, or they sort of. And Contador is still a hero with most of the public.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And the Spaniards, when I was at the press conference in 2001, and we were asking Armstrong about Ferrari. Right, and there was something like 18 questions of rubbish, because everybody wanted to ask about this doping doctor that Lance is working with. And eventually we get around to the doping, and there's some good debate. And the Spanish journalists were there, you could see they were agitating, they were agitated. And one of the Spanish journalists said when there was a pause in the doping thing, He said, Lance, have you any plans of riding the Vuelta in September? And I just thought, guys, hold on. Can we not find out if this guy's a cheat first, But the Spanish had a different attitude. And to me, it's diminished Spanish sport.
And those blood samples that lie somewhere in Spain will we ever see them? Will we ever know?
I don't think so. And it was a difficult. I think at that time Spain was ready to be a bit more honest about doping, but Spanish law meant that doping was not a crime. So therefore, the rights of people's privacy when they go to their doctor transcended the need for the public to see who owned those blood samples. So that lady judge who made the decision, in law, she made the correct decision.
I've spent the last 2 weeks talking to fellow journos who all say to me, just say one thing to David Walsh, bloody well done and good on you and such like, which is tremendous. But during it all, during that pursuit, were many of our fellow professions on your side?
I think a lot of them were, but a lot of the cycling journalists had bought into Lance early on, and they didn't want to change. But forget the journalists. Our great spin doctor par excellence, Alistair Campbell, Mr. Blair's man. The man who was influential in Britain's presence in Iraq, we could say. When Tony Blair lost power, Alistair decided to become a sports writer, and he wrote for the Times. And the guy he most wanted to interview was Lance Armstrong, at a time when the evidence that Armstrong was a doper was overwhelming. Even the dumbest of dumbasses could have seen Lance was a doper. Alistair went out and interviewed him, and they loved each other. Alistair never asked him a tough question. Lance gave the usual BS, and Alistair soaked it up. One of the most eminent political minds of our time bought that nonsense, and I thought to myself, Alistair, the country was sort of in your hands, man.
He says, most recently, Lance Armstrong said that, okay, punish me and everything, but don't forget the others. Now, Tyler Hamilton has won this award, the William Hill Sportsbook of the Year award, in recent years. Does Armstrong have a case on that? Should others be charged?
He's a particular case, Lance. He says, I got the death penalty, they got off. The reason he got the death penalty was they asked him to come in with his hands up and tell the truth. He indicated he might. They were prepared to just take away 2 of his 7 tours. They were prepared to give him something like a 2-year ban. He then changed his mind, and he went to law to try and stop USADA having jurisdiction in his case. Now, once you do that, you put yourself beyond the realm of mercy. So he wasn't going to get a merciful treatment, and he didn't. But he got what he deserved, in my view. The thing that Lance did was, as soon as he got caught, and the Sunday Times went looking for their money, he paid the money back, and he paid it back generously. And he has since talked about that and said, I've sorted things out with David Walsh in the Sunday Times. They deserve to get their money back, and they were the first people to get it back. And I think that's his way of saying is, our relationship was business, it was professional. We were never friends, so there is no need for apologies or anything like that. I was a journo trying to prove he was a crook. He was a crook trying to conceal the truth from everybody, and I was a problem. So it was just business.